Whispers in the Shadows. Forgotten Asylum. Chapter 1. The Reawakening. The abandoned Asakusa Asylum stood as a crumbling testament to a forgotten era. Its ivy-clad walls and broken windows whispered of untold horrors, the kind that linger in the darkest corners of the human mind. Once a place of healing, it had become a breeding ground for despair, its halls echoing with the screams of those long gone. Taro Kurokawa, an investigative journalist with a penchant for the macabre, had always been drawn to places like this. His latest assignment had brought him to the outskirts of Tokyo, where the asylum's reputation as a site of paranormal activity was well known. Armed with a camera and a notepad, he ventured into the asylum, determined to uncover the truth behind the rumors. The air inside was heavy, laden with the scent of mildew and decay. Taro's footsteps echoed eerily through the empty halls, the sound amplified by the silence that enveloped him. He paused, shining his flashlight on the faded graffiti that adorned the walls. Pleas for help, names of the forgotten, and cryptic symbols that hinted at dark rituals. As he delved deeper, Taro stumbled upon an old, leather-bound journal half buried in debris. Its pages were yellowed with age, the handwriting spidery and erratic. Flipping through it, he realized it belonged to Dr. Nakamura, the asylum's last director. The entry spoke of strange occurrences, patients whispering about shadows that moved on their own, and a growing sense of dread that had eventually led to the asylum's closure. Chapter 2. The Descent. The journal's final entry was particularly disturbing. Dr. Nakamura wrote of a patient named Yuki, a young woman who had been committed after a series of violent outbursts. Yuki claimed to hear voices in the shadows, voices that told her to do unspeakable things. The doctor's notes detailed her descent into madness and his own growing fear that something malevolent was at work. As Taro read the last page, he felt a chill run down his spine. The words seemed to bleed off the page, a sense of foreboding settling over him. Determined to find out more, he made his way to the basement, where the journal hinted at a hidden room. The basement was darker, the air colder. His flashlight flickered, casting fleeting shadows on the damp walls. Taro found a rusted metal door, partially hidden behind a stack of rotting wooden crates. With some effort, he forced it open, revealing a small, windowless room. Inside, he discovered a makeshift shrine. Candles long extinguished, strange symbols drawn in what looked like dried blood, and a portrait of Yuki, her eyes hauntingly lifelike. As he examined the shrine, the temperature dropped sharply, and the whispers began. At first, they were faint, indistinguishable murmurs. But as Taro strained to listen, they grew louder, more insistent. Words in a language he didn't recognize filled his ears, accompanied by a growing sense of dread. He backed away, his flashlight beam trembling. Suddenly, the door slammed shut, plunging him into darkness. Panic set in as he fumbled for the door handle, his mind racing. The whispers became deafening, a cacophony of voices overlapping, each one more desperate and menacing than the last. Chapter 3. The Unseen. Hours later, Taro managed to force the door open and stumbled out, gasping for breath. The asylum seemed more menacing now, the shadows deeper and the silence more oppressive. He decided to leave, at least for the night, but as he turned to go, he saw her. Yuki stood at the end of the hall, her pale face illuminated by the flickering light. Her eyes locked onto his, and she began to whisper. Taro felt a pull, an irresistible urge to walk towards her. Each step felt like a struggle against an invisible force. As he reached her, she vanished, leaving only the echoes of her whispers behind. Taro collapsed to the ground, the air around him crackling with energy. He knew he couldn't leave, not yet. The story was far from over, and something inside the asylum needed to be uncovered. Chapter 4. Revelation. Next day, Taro returned with renewed determination. He explored deeper into the asylum, guided by the whispers that now seemed to beckon him. He found records of experiments conducted on the patients, experiments designed to tap into the human psyche's darkest depths. Dr. Nakamura had been obsessed with unlocking the secrets of the mind, and Yuki had been his key. Taro pieced together the horrifying truth. The asylum had become a conduit for something otherworldly, an entity that fed on fear and suffering. The experiments had opened a door, and Yuki had become the vessel through which the entity manifested. As he delved deeper, Taro's own grip on reality began to slip. The shadows seemed to move with a life of their own, and the whispers grew louder, more coherent. They spoke of pain, of betrayal, and of a hunger that could never be satisfied in a final confrontation. Taro found himself back in the basement, standing before the shrine. Yuki appeared once more, her form flickering like a candle flame. She reached out to him, her touch cold and electric. "You need to end this," she whispered, her voice a mixture of despair and urgency. "Free me." Chapter 5. The release. With trembling hands, Taro gathered the remains of the shrine, setting fire to the symbols and the portrait. The flames licked hungrily at the offerings, the air thick with smoke and the acrid smell of burning. As the shrine burned, the whispers reached a fever pitch, then abruptly fell silent. Yuki's form dissolved into the air, a look of peace replacing her haunted expression. The shadows receded, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, Taro felt a sense of calm. He emerged from the asylum, the morning sun casting long shadows on the ground. The building stood silent, its secrets now ashes. Taro knew he had to share the story, not just to reveal the horrors that had occurred, but to honor the forgotten souls trapped within. Epilogue. The Forgotten. Months later, Taro published his findings, the article causing a sensation. The government announced plans to demolish the asylum, finally putting to rest the site of so much suffering. But Taro couldn't shake the feeling that the entity, whatever it was, had not been entirely vanquished. Late at night, as he lay in bed, the whispers would return, faint and distant. They were no longer menacing, but they served as a reminder. The darkness that had once consumed Asakusa Asylum was still out there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for the next opportunity to be remembered. And so, Taro remained vigilant, knowing that some horrors can never be fully forgotten.